Hi, my name's John Sykes, and to be honest with you, I thought long and hard about whether I was actually going to prepare a podcast and run it regularly. But then I've been looking at what's going on in the world, what's going on in the UK, and also, quite specifically, what's been going on here in Northern Ireland where I live. Now, my accent doesn't indicate that I'm a Northern Ireland person, but I was brought up here. I went to school here. I then went to work in the UK in GB, in various cities in GB. I came back to work here in Northern Ireland, and I was here during a lot of the Trouble period. In fact, I dealt with a lot of the bomb claims that we had. Let me explain. For 40 years, I was an insurance loss adjuster, which meant I investigated and settled, negotiated, and finally arranged payment of insurance claims on behalf of insurance companies. Now, my profession then has changed completely as to what it was, and I retired a number of years ago, but more about that later. So I was here during the bomb troubles, and I saw a lot of the hurt and injury that was caused by both sides. A lot of hypocrisy, and in fact we get more of the hypocrisy today. I'll deal with that later on. As I say, I worked as an insurance loss adjuster for 40 years. And for 18 of those years, I worked internationally. I covered an area from Cairo to Singapore and all of Africa. So I'm quite heavily travelled. And according to my daughter, who went through all my passports a while back, I have been to something like 56 different countries. Oh, I forgot Germany, 57 different countries. Some of those countries, they're too dangerous to go to at the present moment. And over a period of time, I'll tell you about some of those trips. Zaire, for example, now the People's Republic of Congo. When I was there on a number of occasions, yeah, we had bodyguards. But that was, 20, 30 years ago? You don't go there now. But I look at what's going on in the world and I get very, very frustrated at times because I can't say anything. What I say means nothing to anybody. But I do have to agree with a comment that our late Queen Elizabeth II is alleged to have made when she said that, in her opinion, we had the worst bunch of politicians we've had ever. And I don't think she was talking nationally. She was talking internationally. I mean, you just need to look round. How on earth did Boris Johnson become Prime Minister? How on earth did Donald Trump become President of the United States? I have no idea. You have to ask questions of yourself. But anyway, a little bit about myself first of all, as this is the original podcast. Sorry, I have an invader here, a little four-legged friend, who came to stay with me to recover. He was on death's door. He came to stay with me for a week. Oh, be 4 years ago this Christmas. He's still here. He won't go. He's not dead. He's very much alive. He might have every disease going, but he's still alive. So, who am I? Well, as I say, my name's John Sykes. I celebrated my 73rd birthday last month, and I'm still going strong. I've had various medical checkups, including one yesterday, just to look at my vascular situation, and I was given a full, clean bill of health on that. Illnesses, Yes, I've had an epileptic attack on several occasions over the last 10, 15 years, but I'm cleared from that. I had a stroke January a year ago, which was not very nice, and so I have to be a bit wary of that. Am I fat, overweight, obese? No, I am a bit overweight. I don't get the opportunity to exercise probably as much as I should do. But as I said, I was an insurance loss adjuster for 40 years. And after 18 years of flying all around the place, I seemed to spend most of my life in aeroplanes. And with the industry profession changing, I decided I was going to retire. I'd had enough. So, and this is the four-legged expert that I was on about. Meet Sir Humphrey. Right, he's down, he's away. What does that mean for me? So I retired, and I came back to Northern Ireland, which, as I say, I consider to be my home. I've spent so long here. I was actually born in Liverpool, which some would have said a long time ago was the capital of Ireland. I don't have a Liverpool accent. I've lost it. I lost any Northern Ireland accent I had because, as I say, I was away from the UK for 18 years in various countries. After 3-4 months of being retired, I was bored. I was fed up. I didn't know what to do with myself. So, for some unknown reason, and I still can't remember to this day, I decided I was going to learn Russian. Don't ask me why. I joined a website, and in that website, everybody helped everybody else. But as soon as they discovered I was British, that was it. Can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? Well, to cut a long story short, I never learned a word of Russian, but I did discover that I could help people with English. So off I went, and I took 6 months out, and I trained and I qualified to teach English as a second language. And I did my first lesson with an Iranian person on the 9th of October 2011. So actually, in a couple of months' time, I would have been teaching online for over 12 years. Now, in those days, we didn't have the technology that we have now. I seem to remember that the platform I used actually was Adobe Connect. Boy, was it difficult, because all we had was dial-up internet connection. Things have changed. Technology is fantastic now. And yeah, it makes it a lot easier. In fact, to be quite honest with you, when I'm teaching people online or working with them on their English, you almost have to be a computer expert at the same time because you're using that much additional technology, including AI, which I do use to help me. I don't use it to cheat, but I do use it to help me. So I've been doing that, as I say, for almost 12 years. But I've been watching what's going on in the country and what's going on worldwide. A lot of those countries I actually know about because I've been there. I've been to Iraq. I was in Iran during the revolution in the 1978 to 80s. I lived there for 18 months, and I went there just in front of them, where kicking the Shah out and bringing Khomeini in. Things have changed there. My own children, of which I have two, one will be he'll actually be 39 tomorrow, and my daughter has just passed the age of 37, I think she is now. But they both live in Germany. They've both been there a long period of time. They both speak fluent German and English, and they also speak fluent Armenian because their mother is Iranian Armenian. So to communicate, they speak Armenian. My daughter also speaks Spanish and Italian. They love languages, but they realize the international value. We Brits, of course, now we don't speak anybody else's language. Why would we do that? They can learn English. Another side of the pond. But I've been looking more and more what's going on. I'm going to deal initially with Northern Ireland. This is a mess here in Northern Ireland, a real mess. I don't think anybody realises. Now, we have a supposed local government. We have 90 MLAs, 90 for heaven's sake. Each get paid very well. A lot of them didn't have a job before they became MLAs. But now, they live very nicely. What is it, £48,000 they get a year? But in the last 7 years, we've had about 2 years of government. They're all being paid. They continue to get paid. Do they pass any laws? No. First of all, it was Sinn Féin that didn't go in. They cancelled government for 3 years. All about a language, which, quite frankly, is rather amusing because a lot of the Sinn Féin party, including the leaders, don't speak the language that they fought so hard to get. I don't have a problem with second languages. I teach English as a second language. So why would I worry about it? But don't force it down my throat. Anyway, we're now in another situation where almost 2 years we don't have a government. This time it's the other side. It's the DUP, the Democratic Unionist Party. Now, we all had terrorists. We had the IRA. Some people say it's still around. It probably is. And then on the other side, we have the UDA, we have the UVF, we have God knows how many of them, different ones. Are they into terrorism? Nah, they're into drugs. Do you know, they are being paid, some of them, transitional money to transition from being terrorists into normal, everyday citizens. For 25 years, they're being paid this money. How long does it take to transition? Have they transitioned? No, they're into drugs. Does anybody do anything about it? Well, recently, the police and the NCA are actually doing something about it. Not enough, in my opinion, but they are doing something about it. And quite frankly, they need to stick them in prison and throw away the key. I look at our situation here as far as the NHS is concerned. I saw a thing on TV yesterday about a lady who needed a knee replacement, kneecap replacement. She was in agony. Do you know she was told it could be 7 years before there was a space for her to have an operation under the NHS? So she took her savings. She went to Poland. For half the price of what she could have had it done in a private hospital here in Northern Ireland, she has a new knee. And it's completely changed her life. Why would we have to wait 7 years? Well, I tell you why. Because we have an NHS here that is in a mess. As a local government, we don't have a budget. We don't have a government to prepare a budget. So that's left to the minister from Westminster to create a budget. But he can't really do that. He's got to work on past figures. So it means that our education authorities are losing money. NHS is in a total mess. Nobody wants to come and work here in the NHS. Why would they? They don't have the staff, they don't have the beds, they don't have the equipment. There are huge delays. To get to see any form of consultant at the moment, you're waiting 5 to 7 years. Don't bother. The only time the hospitals really want to see you, and that is because of backlogs, is when you're almost on death's door. I had a stroke in January last year, called an ambulance. I was told it would be several hours before I could get an ambulance. A friend ran me into the hospital, and within 23 minutes of arriving at the hospital, I was rushed through into A&E. I was treated for the stroke. If I had waited 4 hours or up to that, which is the crucial period, if I had waited that length of time, God knows what would have happened to me. Who do I blame? Do I blame the NHS? To a certain extent. But the NHS control is run by our local government, of which we don't have, and I've only had about 2 years in the last 7 years. But they're all still being paid. Pathetic. Then we look at the UK government. Please tell me, how did Boris Johnson, a known lazy liar, how did he ever become Prime Minister? Now they all talk about, oh, Boris got this fantastic majority in Parliament. He won a landslide victory. I don't believe that. I don't believe he did win a landslide victory. Remember, the leader of the opposition at that time was, unfortunately, Jeremy Corbyn. Jeremy Corbyn was a communist, and some of his ideas terrified the members of his own party. So they didn't want him as Prime Minister. So rather than abstain, they voted for Conservatives. So effectively, it wasn't Boris Johnson won the election. It was Jeremy Corbyn lost it. Now we have a situation in London where Thames Water yesterday, it's about to go bankrupt. It's got debts of billions of pounds. But it's paid out huge amounts in dividends to its shareholders. So effectively what they've done is they've stripped the money out of the company, which is a monopoly, by the way. So it has a captive audience, and we all need water. Taken the money out, and it's borrowed to take that money. Now it can't pay it. And who's going to bail it out? Well, it's going to be us, the public. Have they invested in their industry? No. Are they contaminating our waters? Yes. It's cheaper to pay the fines than to actually do the investment. How do we let situations like that arise? We're the only country in Europe that lets our essentials, such as water, fall into private hands. Look at the railways in GB. They're a total mess. Now, I have to be fair. Here in Northern Ireland, our water is still owned by us, the people. Our public transport is still owned by us, the people. I look at some of the fares, railway fares in GB. They're terrifying. I worked it out that to do it, the equivalent of a trip from Belfast to Dublin, in GB, it would cost about £120. You know what it costs here? Less than £10. And if you happen to be somebody of my age, I'm extremely lucky. I have a free travel pass, so it doesn't cost me anything if I want to take the train or bus to Dublin. And that's a combination between two countries, UK and the Republic of Ireland. So you'll forgive me, that's where I come from. I'm well-travelled. I'm not an idiot. I'm not political from the point of view I don't belong to any party. I couldn't care less what religion somebody is. I've mixed with them most of my life, of all different types of religion. Do I believe in religion? Not really, no. So you won't see me taking sides. I'm just giving comments from my point of view. Let's carry on to later time. Okay? Thanks for listening.